Hello everyone. Thank you for joining me for another video, or your first video. Welcome. This is another video in my 31 Days of Halloween series. As you can see, my Halloween, this is actually an apron I turned into a tablecloth. So, this may not be Halloween this year, but the tablecloth is Halloween themed, and my book has supernatural stuff in it, so this is a book that I wrote. So, no worries about copyright, no worries about anything. I'm not sure how good it is. It was a project I just wanted to do. I wanted to write a novel, so I did. It was during a November novel writing challenge. I think this says 2013. Let's check that. Yeah, 2013. Where you write a novel in a month. 50,000 words in a month. So, I did. Me and my mom edited the book, so there are plenty of mistakes still in there that we missed. I even sold a few copies on Amazon. It is available on Amazon. It's 99 cents, or if you have Kindle Unlimited, it's free. So, if you have Kindle Unlimited and you're interested, it doesn't cost you anything to read it. Be kind, because I know it is not a best-selling book. I've only sold a few copies, but I'm a published author, sort of. But I thought it'd be fun to read you some of this book because I can. I said no copyright, being it's mine. 12 Pints of Blood. Let's see, we'll flip it over here and read the back. Detective Kaylin Monroe has just been handed the most difficult case of her life. There's been a second murder. Victim drained of all 12 pints of blood. This case will take Kaylin back into the world of magic, vampires, and murder. She may find herself, her love, or her death. She'll have to rely on her own supernatural powers in order to survive. The blurb there might be better than the rest of the book, but I figure I'll do some tapping and probably do some tapping while I read it. I'm a little nervous because I know it's not the best book, but I think this is going to be fun. So, let's get into a little story time. And if you guys like it, we'll read some more of it later on, maybe later on this month. I just want to try a video and see what happens. So, here goes. Chapter 1. Here we have another body that's been drained of all the blood. I guess the spooky detective is on her way to solve this one. I'm glad we don't have to deal with it. Detective Kaylin Monroe heard her colleagues talking as she approached the crime scene. It did not surprise her that there was another victim within a week. She had been working on the case all night, the first case. It was going to be a long day. Kaylin is called the spooky detective because she handles almost all the cases involving the supernatural in any form. The other detectives don't want to even know that this whole other world exists. They like to pretend that it doesn't. Sometimes she'd like to pretend it didn't exist too, but that's not an option for her. You see, Kaylin is a supernatural creature. She is a sorceress, a psychic, with some vampire blood in the mix. Her psychic abilities, super keen hearing, keen sense of smell, and super strength make for a pretty good detective, but it doesn't make her a very popular one. The latest crime scene looks very much like the first one. The body is lying on the dining room table, completely naked and cleaned off. There's no blood on the body, or in the body for that matter. 2 very visible puncture wounds on the victim's neck are the only marks left on the body. Kaylin can hear the officers talking about a vampire attack, but Kaylin's not convinced. What kind of vampire drains the body of all the blood and then paints the walls with it? A vampire would just drink the blood. Also, the puncture wounds don't seem right either. She's seen her share of vampire bites, and this does not appear the same. The question is, how did the suspect drain all the blood from the body without leaving a huge mess? The only explanation is that they cleaned up after themselves. They had to have taken the whole night to do this and not be caught. There will be no hair, fibers, or fingerprints, just like the other scene. This person knows what they're doing. This makes the case a difficult one and a real challenge. But then again, Kaylin has never shied away from a challenge. There was an interesting coin found under the tongue of the other victim. She suspects that there will be another of these strange coins here as well. Everything about this crime scene is almost identical to the first one. It appears to be some sort of ritual, but it's nothing like she has seen in all her years on this earth. She's going to go back to the police station and start combing through all the evidence. There has to be something that the killer missed. She's hoping they made a mistake somewhere along the line and that she can catch it. I am adding a little bit in here. I see spots where I think I should have put a different word or a sentence or something, so I do change it up a little bit, but it's basically the same thing. So that was the first chapter, introducing the story. I'm thinking maybe I should have done a little bit more background or introduction there, but maybe next time, if there is a next time. Okay. On to chapter 2. Kaylin is sitting at her desk in the police station going over the crime scene in her head. There's something about the victim that bothers her, but she does not know what it is. We always catch the best cases, says her partner, Susie Rivers. I don't know about the best cases, but we sure get the interesting one, Kaylin replies. Can we just chalk this up to vampires gone wild and call it done? I mean, what else would drain all the blood out of a person? I've been around a lot of vampires, and I've never known one to paint their dinner onto the walls. A vampire would not waste that much blood. How would you explain the coin under the tongue? That would not be necessary if a vampire was playing with their food. Maybe the blood tastes better with a magical coin in the mouth. Is that all you can come up with, Susie? I'm tired, and that's not my area of expertise, it's yours. I don't have any ideas yet, Kaylin replied, but I'm just not buying the vampire angle. It's almost like a setup. I need to know more about the symbols drawn on the wall and the coin under the tongue. Well, Kay, I guess you'll have to talk to an expert. How about Aidan Kavanaugh? Let's look over the evidence from the crime scene and talk to the coroner before we go soliciting outside help. I really don't want to call Aidan in unless it is really necessary. Why not? Have you got something against Aidan? Let's just focus on the case, replied Kaylin. The last thing Kaylin needs right now is an encounter with Aidan Kavanaugh. He's one of the leaders of the International Vampire Movement, or IVM, and her former lover. He's an expert on paranormal ritual and is probably the best one to help her figure out the bloody symbols on the wall and the mysterious coin. The only problem is she just can't seem to think clearly around him. Even though Kaylin has not seen Aidan for a long time, he's never far from her thoughts. It was the thoughts of him that have ruined more than one date. The most sought-after bachelor on the force, Greg Simmons, could not take her mind off the past and the man that she wishes she never loved. This would not be the time to get distracted either. There's an important case to focus on. Her reputation may depend on this case. 2 victims all, and she's certain that the killer will strike again soon. See Greg walking towards Susie with an annoyed face. As usual. And in case another she doesn't. He's not too happy with being turned down, and she doesn't feel like she owes him an explanation. I see you ladies are hard at work looking at pictures of naked men. Is that how you prefer your men, Kaylin? Dead? You sure don't seem to like the living, breathing ones. Not the time or place for your insecurities, Greg. Just because I wouldn't sleep with you doesn't mean I don't like real men. But sometimes I do prefer them dead, though. Vampires are so much more fun than you. Maybe even warmer. Susie interjects, "Time to get back to work, children. It's time to check in with the coroner and see what he's got." This is the first time Kaylin has been grateful for a trip to the morgue. She's never ready to look at dead bodies up close, and the coroner always comes up with a reason for her to get real up close and personal with the corpse. Chapter 3. Kaylin and Susie arrive at the morgue to find Jeremy, the coroner, eating as usual. He's eating some kind of sausage, which seems really disgusting, especially in the morgue. Jeremy greets them. "Hey ladies, I have an extra large sausage I'd love to share with you. I promise you'd like it." "I would not want to deprive you, Jeremy. You seem to like having a large sausage in your mouth," Kaylin responds. Jeremy's always making comments like this to her. She's grown accustomed to most of her male co-workers talking to her like that. She's a fairly attractive woman, with wavy auburn hair and mysterious green eyes. She knows that men find her attractive, so she just tries to take it all in stride. "What have you got for us, Jeremy?" Susie asks. "What I can tell you with absolute certainty is that he's dead. I cannot determine the cause of death other than his blood is gone. I did find one of those weird coins under his tongue. I sent it to the lab. That's all I have for you right now." That being a dead end, Kaylin is back at her desk thinking about what a waste of time it was talking to the coroner. She knows there's not going to be any evidence on the body. There wasn't any evidence before except for the stupid coin. There won't be any now. What does the coin have to do with anything? She decides to start with some good old-fashioned police work and find out everything she can about the latest victim. He seems to be an antique collector. She can see the antiques in every picture from his home. There was a business card from a local antique dealer found on his desk. She looks through the evidence until she finds the business card. Unfortunately, the card belongs to Raven Monroe, Kaylin's sister. This is not a complication that she wanted in this case. The problem is that Raven had a meeting with the first victim a day before his death. Raven is an antique dealer, and both of the men were antique collectors. This does not make her a suspect. This does make her a suspect, and it will not make her happy. Kaylin hates to deal with her sister, especially when she's not happy. The first victim was Rodney Crowe, a history professor at the local community college and an avid collector of antique jewelry. He was divorced, no children, no girlfriends, no boyfriends, and nobody that knew him well. All the people questioned said he was someone that you just did not notice. A search of his records showed that he obtained Aidan Kavanaugh's services to authenticate an amulet that he procured. The necklace was never recovered from his home or office, unless he had a secret hiding place the amulet was missing. Kaylin would need to ask Aidan about the necklace after all, and this could make Aidan a suspect as well. Kaylin had no choice but to make an appointment to talk to Aidan tomorrow. She just hoped that she could keep it strictly professional. He could be a suspect. He could also help her identify the origin of the mysterious coin and the symbols drawn on the walls in blood. She had a pleasant phone conversation with Aidan's assistant, Megan, to make her appointment. Megan was to stress that the appointment was strictly professional. The last thing she needed was Aidan thinking she wanted to see him, or even if it was the truth. Kaylin was hoping that Susie would go with her for the appointment, but she was not going to hold her breath. Susie had been MIA most of the time since they caught the Rodney Crowe case, and Kaylin could not get a straight answer out of her. What was Suze doing with her time? There was no evidence that she was working on the case. The second victim has been identified as media tycoon Herbert Clausen, owner of Clausen Media. which owned television stations, radio stations, and several online magazines. He was known as somewhat of a ladies' man in the rich and famous circuit. He had an ex-wife, angry children, and more enemies than anyone could count. He was nothing like Rodney Crowe, but still they had a killer in common. Herbert was a collector of antiques, but he collected statues, not jewelry. Raven had business dealings with this man as well as the first victim. Kaylin was willing to bet that a man like Herbert had dealings with Aiden as well. A rich man buys antiques for the prestige and would not want to be buying fakes. Aiden was the best in the area at authenticating ancient pieces. Kaylin did not like the direction that this case was heading. Raven and Aiden were suspects, or experts, on the case. Either way, it would mean that she would be spending a lot of time with both of them, and she was not happy with that. Not happy at all. Kaylin was home in her own apartment after a really long afternoon going over the evidence in the case. Susie disappeared after lunch and never returned. When Kaylin called, Susie told her she was working on a different angle on the case and was not ready to share it yet. Kaylin took her at her word, but something just did not seem right. Her meeting with Aiden the next morning was the only thing she was going to worry about all night. For someone who was technically dead who could make her feel more alive than any man she'd ever known. She wanted to see him again, but she was afraid of the intense bond that they shared. Kaylin needed to be her own person, and she did not feel that way when they were together. It was not because of anything that he did. It was just the way she felt. She answered a knock at the door, and her vampire brother Jeff was on the other side. Half-brother. She was glad to see him because it would be nice to have someone to talk to instead of herself. Maybe he could take her mind off of Aiden. Here you have a meeting with Aiden in the morning. Well, maybe not. It is strictly business, little brother, so don't get any ideas. Better yet, don't let Aiden get any ideas. You know Aiden, he already has ideas. You two can't be in the same room without the sparks flying. He can't wait for a chance to remind you of how he makes you feel. I was afraid of that, but I have a job to do. He knows I could never forget. He just likes to see me squirm. He only wants you to squirm for him. I hate you. I know. Anyway, I just wanted to warn you. I have a date, so I have to go. Of course, her brother didn't help any, like usual. She was more obsessive over this meeting than before he dropped by. Chapter 5. A look into the past. It doesn't say that, but it just sounded good. Kaylin's mother, Brianna, was a powerful psychic, but she was very much human. Her biological father, Edward, don't laugh, was a powerful sorcerer from a long line of very powerful, immortal sorcerers. They knew that their child would be a powerful psychic and sorceress, and they were not afraid to brag about it. Brianna's sister, Claire, had always been jealous of her. The fact that she was having a magical child was very hard to handle. Claire wanted to be the best sister with the most celebrated life. That's why she tried to kill Brianna. Brianna was 8 months pregnant when Claire took her for a walk in the woods next to their home. When Brianna was just walking around without a care in the world, Claire pulled a dagger out from behind her and stabbed Brianna in the throat. She watched her sister slowly bleed nearly to death on the ground. Claire ran home and told everyone that Brianna was stabbed by a stranger in the woods carrying a ceremonial dagger. It must be because of that magical baby. She wove quite the tale of what happened in the woods. When Claire was weaving her tale of ceremonial murder, Brianna's former vampire lover was saving her life and the life of her unborn child. The vampire Macklin did not know how turning Brianna into a vampire would affect the baby, but he couldn't let either one of them die. Macklin took Brianna back to his home, where she gave birth to a healthy baby girl, Kaylin. When Edward went looking for Brianna's body, all he found was a pool of her blood. He tracked her body to the vampire's lair, where he found her very much undead, with his very alive child. Edward knew that he was not strong enough to kill Macklin the vampire, so he used his magic to cause a distraction. He then killed his now vampire bride and took Kaelin home with him. Kaelin seemed like a powerful sorceress, psychic, and nothing more. Edward watched her with relief for the first 20 years of her life until the day her fangs came out. That was the day that Kaelin found out the truth. She had vampire blood in her veins. Her father had killed her mother for becoming that thing that was very much a part of her. She left her home that day in search of herself. Her half-sister Raven never forgave her for leaving the family and going out on her own. There's still animosity because of Kaelin leaving. Macklin found her a decade later, after she left the sorcerer's family. He took her in and taught her about using her vampire powers along with her other ones. She had found someone who accepted her and everything that she was and all the powers that she had. Kaelin spent decades trying to help and her purpose, protected the innocent and vulnerable chance that there was no times to try. She was subjects. She was from heaven off. She saw he would change. And was a fighter in some Irish fight club in his human days. He still had the physique of a fighter who was the best physical shape possible. He stood over 6 feet tall with light brown hair and the most seductive green eyes she had ever seen. He taught her to be a more efficient fighter, how to trust more, and how to completely lose yourself in another. They had a connection that seemed to span lifetimes. When they were together, it seemed they could make things happen. It seemed like they had an unbreakable bond. But things were not always what they seemed. Back to the present. I think we'll read a little more. Kaelin awoke after a restful sleep, or more like an attempt at sleep. She could not slow her mind down long enough for sleep. There were 2 men murdered in a very bizarre way, and they both had connections to Raven and Aiden. Of course, there is the real question. She could not slow her mind. Real reason she could not slow her mind down. She was too nervous about meeting with Aiden. The old feelings would surface, she knew it, and she was not certain she was strong enough to keep the meeting strictly professional. She was not dressing to impress that morning. The more professional she looked and the more skin she covered, the better. Most of her clothes were thrown all over the house while trying to find a suitable outfit to wear for her meeting with Aiden. She really wished that she didn't care so much about how she looked. A turtleneck was out of the question because it was 80 degrees outside, so she settled on her favorite silk blouse and her favorite and some gray slacks. Professional look was exactly what she was going for. The fact that Aiden always said that the color green brought out the guys. When arrives at Aiden's office, she just too eager. Being late was neither because professional was going to again. Greets Kaelin. I wish we were better circumstances. Those poor men both seemed like such nice guys. I wish it was under better circumstances too. I hate it when murder is the best reason to catch up with old friends. Aiden is just finishing a conference call and be with you in a minute. Would you like something to drink while you wait? No thanks, Megan. I just want to get this over with. Kaelin has no reason to dislike Megan, but there's just something about Megan that bothers her. She's never able to quite put her finger on it. There's a feeling that Megan's not always truthful, but there are a lot of people like that, especially in her world. Her thought process was interrupted when Megan told her that Aiden was ready for her. She bit back the urge to say, "I'll bet he is," as she walks right into the lion's den. She hopes she's prepared for this encounter. Aiden moves so fast that he's in his arms before she can protest. She's surprised when he just holds her there and does not try to make a move. He catches her off guard, and that has given him an opportunity to take advantage. It feels good to be in his arms, but she has to pull herself together and push him away. Aiden, I'm here on police business. I need to talk to you, ask you a few questions about Herbert Clausen and Rodney Crowe. I could also use your help identifying some symbols and antique coins. That is, if you're not the killer. Did you really expect me to stick to the rules? We've been apart for far too long. I'm not doing this right now. I need help with this investigation and nothing more. Are you going to help me or not? Aiden replies, I plan on helping you with all of your needs. Aiden leads her over to the couch in his office where she's forced to sit too close to him. He answers all her questions about murder victims while trying to slide his hand up and down her leg. His helpfulness extends to pushing her hair out of her face and trying to remove an eyelash from her cheek. Caitlin has had all the help she can handle for one day. She tries to brush him off by giving him photographs of the bloody symbols drawn on the wall and the mysterious coins. He promises to do some research and get back to her. She breathes a sigh of relief as she makes it to the door of the office. That sigh of relief was just a moment too soon. Just as she thought she was home free, Aiden pulls her in close and starts kissing her. She instinctively responds to him. She runs her fingers through his hair as he leads her back to the couch. Aiden sits back on the couch and guides Caitlin to his lap. She's losing control, and it feels really good for a moment. And then Megan opens the door. Caitlin jumps up, pulls herself together, and honestly thanks Megan for the interruption. What was she thinking, letting him touch her like that? He was not going to give up now, and she was going to have to work with him. What a disaster. Or was it? She scrambled out of the office while she was making a fool out of herself and could hear Aiden promise to see her soon. She was really hoping he meant that he would have some information for her soon, but she knew that was not what he meant. Okay, guys, I think that's enough for now. Let me know what you think if you want me to read more. We were only through about chapter 5, and they're very short chapters, so there's 50-some chapters, I think. So if you guys would like to hear more, let me know. I may do more this month for my 31 Days of Halloween. And let me know if the tapping was okay or not, if you like that. So subscribe, leave me a comment, and stay tuned for more 31 Days of Halloween. Good night.